People want us to be real. People want to connect with other real people. They want to see who we are. They want to know who we are. They want to connect in real conversation. And
welcome to Finding Your Spark again. I am so glad you are back here with us today. Today, we're going to talk to Clare Belmont, who helps spiritual and creative entrepreneurs with business and personal development. And we're going to talk about forgetting perfect because we're real. So forget perfect, be real. Welcome.
thank you, Donnelly. It's so lovely to be here with you.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'm so glad you're here. And, Claire and I have known each other for a little while now. And so it's so great to get to bring you into this forum and sort of connect two parts of my world and really talk about being real, which for me is a lot about being present and not trying to people please. So I'd love to hear, how do you relate to that topic and why does that come up for you?
It's actually come up quite a lot for me, particularly in recent weeks, but I've really been focused on exactly that, the authenticity. People want us to be real. People want to connect with other real people. They want to see who we are. They want to know who we are. They want to connect in real conversation. And also there's so much pressure in society, right, for us to turn up and be a certain way. And actually that's just not necessary for us to be a certain way. We have to be who we are. We are unique beings. And actually, I really deeply believe that each of us does have a unique purpose here on the planet. And we do have a unique message to share. And there's some braveness in the vulnerability of sharing that message as well. And I think that's what people appreciate, and particularly in my circles, working with, spiritual and creative entrepreneurs. I mean, we just want to do our thing out here, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. You're reminding me, I was talking to a client this morning and she had handled a situation where normally there would be, questioning about why are you not there and what is going on, and right, there would be all this sort of layered professional guilt that happens. It happens in our world, right? And she handled it in such a different way that the person that she had said that to called her up and said, I have never had anyone treat me this nicely in business. And that's part of who she is, right? We don't think of that as sort of part of your brand, right? Because that's just the out front bit, but that's just who she is. It's just literally how she thought of it. And so she said, hey, this is how life is. And I'm okay with this. Let's keep talking and all of the things that you need to do in business. But such an interesting shift that happens when we just show up and say what's really going on.
Oh, exactly. Because this is where the intimacy and real relationship comes from as well, because we're just out here being real with each other and honest and showing up as we are and having these real conversations, and therefore deepening our relationships, because we're not going to do that unless we can meet at some level of vulnerability. I guess that's another thing that does seem to be coming up for me a lot is people. So there's a bravery, isn't there, in being vulnerable, and it takes a lot. Often, like you say, our brand is my shiny face. This is my brand and this is how I present to the world. But it's no good if you're kind of being someone else totally different behind the closed door. We can feel that, can't we? We're sensitive beings, and whether it's business or personal, I really don't see any separation in that, especially for entrepreneurs and business owners.
Yeah, I think you're right, because we are the brand, right? We're out here doing whatever it is we're doing. That creativity that we have, it's like I'm the thing. I'm it. So it's a really tricky line between professionalism, being unprofessional, and being real and authentic, and also sort of unloading on people who are not your best friend, and then finding that you made a bunch of videos about something that you wish certain people didn't know about you, right? So that sense of like, this is what they used to say in the olden days: share your scars, not your wounds, right? So what is that vulnerability? What does it look like between me and my best friend, or me and my clients, or my audience, or right, people who haven't been vulnerable with me yet, right? So there's no exchange.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I've learned a lot over the years around, yeah, self-regulation. So I think that that's where it comes into it for us as professionals, right? Like we know that we have an element of self-regulation. So I'm not going to come to you with a whole load of anxiety and a whole load of stuff going on and just kind of dump all of that on you. It's whereas I might with my best friend, you know. It's kind of a
Yes.
different,
Yes.
there's different levels and layers to it, isn't there?
Mm.
In terms of emotion, I mean, it's all rooted in emotion, really, and it does come down to how we can regulate ourselves and how we can take care of ourselves first. And I know that you do an
Mm.
awful lot of work around and talk around that as well. Is first knowing how to regulate ourselves, and then
Mm.
talking to others about that, then sharing our lived experience on, okay, what tools did I use? I know you're a fan of the breath work and the grounding and all of those amazing things. And yeah, me too, connecting to nature and all of those practices. I'm very, very dedicated to my daily practices. And it's those daily practices that keep me regulated so that I don't have these moments of I do have moments of overwhelm. I'm human, of course I do, but I don't, explode like that. When you get to that certain stage back in the day where it's kind of my emotions are up here and I just can't take any more and one more thing, it just doesn't really get there for me now because I feel it coming inside, and when I feel it coming inside, then I know I need to just come and take some breaths or go and get barefoot outside or whatever it is that I need to do so I'm not projecting.
Yeah, that's part of that. You're tying it together beautifully. That's part of the relationship of being real all the way along too, right? It's like if you're aware, which is what a lot of those practices do for us, they raise our awareness so that we know what's happening before we're in the explosion. And before we're telling everybody what we really think of them, right? We said it just, 10 days earlier when we felt it. We said it in a kind and gentle way. I remember there was a moment in my spiritual growth, which I haven't thought about in a long time, where I was a very angry young person. I was a very angry young person.
I identify.
In fact, it always cracks me up to kind of connect back to people who are from that time in my life, because I'm like, me doing this. But what I learned, and I think that's a lot of it, is like you learn because you were really bad at it, and then you spend 20 or more years studying it, figuring it out. But what I learned about being angry is that I kept trying to manage the moment of anger, and that moment is really hard to manage. I mean, of course, there are ways to sort of not create complete devastation in your life and things like that. But that should not be the goal, right? Because the anger had a precursor, and the frustration that was probably the precursor had a precursor. And that precursor, when you go back far enough, was simply an opinion or a need or a way of thinking that you'd like to have heard in the conversation. And when we go all the way back in there, and then we're real, for me, that's where the being real part is, then it's a whole different conversation. And and the relationships change drastically because you can be kind throughout it.
Yeah, quite. And I learned as well that in actual fact, just talking about anger, that you can also be angry and kind, and in some ways I think it's really important to honor. I mean, we've got to honor those feelings, right? So it's not like we don't have to never get angry, because of course we do. And actually I have an anger playlist that if I feel anger rising, 20-minute playlist goes on. I don't allow myself any more than 20 minutes, but 20 minutes, and most of it is kind of shouty and just want to, and I'll give myself 20 minutes of that and let it come through, but then I'm moving on. And there may still be some, and this has happened for me quite recently, that there was still some residual anger. And I'm thinking, okay, this is something that needs to be expressed. It's a situation with another person that, yeah, did really trigger me. Even with my anger playlist, there's still something that needs to be expressed. So, okay, I'm going to express this. But because I'd already kind of danced it out and thumped a pillow several times and all of these things, I was able to just use that fire in my belly and that anger as a bit of fuel, like a bit of rocket fuel, to give me the strength to actually open my throat and say the thing. But say it in a way, with kindness and with love. Look, this whole situation has made me feel this way, and allow it to come out, and I think there's, again, that's the self-regulation piece, isn't it? Is knowing how to deal with the anger. Now, years ago I did not.
Yeah, yeah. That it's an interesting thing, because what you're talking about is moving energy, right?
Yes,
So
yes,
energy
yes,
built up in your body and you
yes.
moved it out. You took your 20 minutes and danced and thumped and did all the things.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're able to again raise your awareness, right?
Yes,
And say, "Hey, is there something here that is practical that I need to deal with?
yes.
Or is there something here that's just completely off going on in my, right? What is the thing that is going on here?" And when I think about that in relationship to how we talk about joy, right? So joy is such an important piece of our desire to be on the planet, and cultivating happiness throughout our lives is so important to just being able to have fun and play and
Oh, yes,
not lose your childhood friend who's still in there,
absolutely.
who is the creative, kind, playful one, right?
Yes.
And certainly for entrepreneurs, it's the difference between having a career and not having a career,
Yeah,
right? So being angry and finding really productive, easy, kind ways to manage your own self, right? To honor yourself and be kind to yourself about it, where you have a space for yourself to feel and be with that, and also to then bring that into your relationships is a way that we look at realness quite often.
yes, yes.
And I think that pathway that we're going on when we're kind with ourselves and then kind with the other person, who often that's what we need to do, is make an adjustment in some relationship,
Yeah.
that can give way to such a beautiful moment that may be that moment, or it may be that you just made it through that moment with that person, and then to that night at dinner with your loved ones, you said, "Oh, this was right," and so now you're in a new place and you have something different to give. And so I wonder, how does that play out for you or for your clients?
Yeah, I mean, well, we see it every day, where it's very simple. I think we tend to overcomplicate things because we're genius. This is the thing. We forget that as entrepreneurs, we are creative genius, right? And we need to exercise that. And so it plays out for all of us. And I think it just boils down to simplicity of being able to take a step back, get the broader perspective, or the grounded perspective, to become aware of where I'm at, how am I feeling, question myself, because it's always like it's our universe, isn't it? The universe in here, that's where it starts and ends. And so always bringing it back to question ourselves, becoming aware of it, and then it transmutes. I really believe that by bringing it into awareness, we're transmuting it. We are shifting the energy. We are playing with our energy. It's all energy and energetic work, isn't it? And yeah, that's totally my lived experience, and also why I'm so passionate about these daily rituals and practices, and having something to, an anchor to come back to, the breath or the water or a morning, whatever it might be, a morning walk, being out in nature, all of those yummy things that do keep us grounded and self-aware. And I think through over year, I mean, it takes time as well, right? So we do need to remember to be kind with ourselves. No one's becoming an enlightened Buddha overnight, or ever, actually, because it's a journey. So it takes time, and I think patience and kindness with ourselves, and stripping it back to the simplicity of that, of coming out of the head and into the heart, and being patient and kind with ourselves first, then that has that ripple effect on everybody around us. Because once our own nervous system is in a decent enough place where I can communicate from the heart with compassion, and I'm not in this kind of head spin of you did this and you did, you know, I'm not in any kind of blame or judgment. It's a big practice for me to drop out of my head and into my heart, because I can live in my head. I'm sure we all can, that I can really be in the dream world and really attached to the fantasy, and actually that's very different to my reality, and then I end up very disappointed by life because I have this big dream going on that is very different to how it actually is in front of me. So that's why also the grounding is really important. So this is something that I work on with clients as well, is the daily practice and the self-awareness, and coming back to myself and regulating myself to then transmute these, whether it's anger, frustration, whatever it is, to transmute it completely into essentially joy and happiness. It's possible. We know it's possible because that's our lived experience, right? Doesn't mean to say that we're never irritated, frustrated, angry, because there's a whole spectrum of emotions out here that we need to experience every day. But it's possible to hit the heights as well and transmute the anger into joy. Why not, if we're the creators of our own life?
Yeah. Yeah. So I love that. So you're talking about this routine, this daily experience really brings to mind how we create what I call a set point. Actually, I love my map analogy for emotions. And so in that analogy, it would be your hometown, right? Where do you live most of the time? And even in those moments where you don't really realize that you live there, right? What does your neighborhood look like? And that kind of set point or hometown that you kind of always go back to, that's what you reset with repetition. And that's where that repetition comes in, right? So we have breathing practices, we have energetic practices, we have all these things that bring us back to spirit, bring us back to our bodies. I adore the moment. I didn't at the time, but I really love going back to this moment where I finally got that I didn't have to escape my body to feel the spiritual lightness, that I really had to lean into my body, that my body was part of this mechanism and experience, and that denying it, right, was really a problem in terms of being able to know where I am spiritually, emotionally, mentally, certainly in terms of creativity and the ability to be productive, all of those things. So I love that you're bringing in this kind of repetitive process that we do. Whether that's, 3 times a week at yoga for you, or whether that's 16 times a day, a specific breathing practice that you do, right? So it can look like whatever it works for you. But that set point determines the sort of what is real for you. What is real?
Yeah.
Right? That's that becomes the real.
Yeah, it does. And it also really trains your focus, right? Because if how you do one thing is how you do everything, and if you can bring yourself back every day, 3 times a day to do the thing, or even every morning do the thing, or 3 times a week, whatever the thing is, it could be anything. You can turn anything into a ritual. But if you're really focused on being purely present with that one thing at the same time every day or every week, and you're making it into a ritual, then you're really training your brain to be dedicated, focused. You're coming back to being fully present with this one thing. And that's why ritual is so important. This is why our grandmothers did rituals, right? This is why through time, sages and seekers and seers and whatever we want to call them, all these great, amazing avatars that have gone before us, they were steeped in ritual and ceremony. That's what ritual and ceremony is about, is being present and like you were saying, connecting to spirit while in the body. That's also such a key thing. We don't have to be sat escaping, transcending, which is also beautiful and has its place, of course, we know that. But also we're spiritual beings in the body, and we're given this magnificent body to experience being human. So really bringing that's why I bring ritual and ceremony into every day, every week, every month, with the moon, all of those
Yeah.
things. Yeah, so important.
Yeah, that really does bring it into how are we real, right? Because we're connected. So we can be real and not sort of be unconnected, so not real, just whoever you need me to be in this conversation and whoever you need me to be in that conversation. And I'm dancing as fast as I can, but nothing about it can be real because there's no awareness. There's no bringing it back to you. So I love that you bring that in. You reminded me of the how I really view joy and happiness. Because a lot of times people will ask me, oh, you're a joy coach, so you want to prioritize joy, and so all the other emotions be gone. Uh, and for me, that is absolutely not the process, right? The process really is about speed. It's about how fast do I get back from wherever I just went to where I want to be, to a happiness state, to a in balance state, right? And so we were talking before we turned the camera on and the audio on about how there was a time where I went through a great loss, and it knocks you, it knocks you to your knees, and you're not going to happy yourself out of that, right? But you do have moments of relief, and those moments of relief make it so that we can come back from those dark emotions, those deep, difficult emotions. And we experience those emotions every day in our, right? It doesn't have to be from a great loss. It can be, that can be a very long process, right? But the speed to get back from a bad conversation with a client or a potential client or a work relationship that you're having, those things, they can take you out for hours if you don't do the work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, it's a choice. Like, that's quite a difficult thing for people to grasp, and it was a difficult thing for me to grasp when I first heard that years ago, that happiness is a choice. And I'm like, me, but I didn't, you kind of hear that I didn't choose to be in this situation. And well, it is a choice, because like you say, we're gonna go, stuff happens, right? Stuff happens in life, and it's going to happen anyway, and it's how we deal with it is our choice. And yes, stuff's going to happen, and yes, we're going to feel crap about it if it's a crap thing that's happened. But you bring up a brilliant point about the speed. Like, I've noticed, and I don't know about you, but the further down this journey that I go, the quicker I'm able to turn it around. And it doesn't mean to say that I'm not going to be upset, angry, any of those things, but I'm not like it for long. And I very, very rarely let it affect others around me. And that,
Mm.
and again,
Mm.
that's through these practices and through these self-regulation practices that we can actually choose not to be. And there might even be a day where we might choose it. I might choose to wallow. I might actually just choose to wallow for a bit and have a bit of a pity party and give myself permission for that and eat chocolate under a blanket and sulk. And that's my choice. But I know there comes a point where I have to mother myself out of it and kind of say, oh, come on, love. Come on, love. Let's get up now. Let's get up, get changed, go for a walk, change the scenery, do whatever needs to be done, self-parenting to get myself out of that. And I think that can only come with experience, can't it?
Yeah, yeah. Well, that really is part of being real, isn't it?
Totally.
Allowing yourself to be whatever you want to be in that moment, and to be kind to yourself about it, instead of like, oh, I shouldn't have wasted that whole day under those blankets eating chocolate. I think I'd like to just eat the chocolate, forget about the blankets.
Don't need blankets
um,
in Florida. We do in the UK.
no, I don't even need depression. I'll just go for the happy chocolate.
Great, great. Yeah, I'm in for that too.
So funny. So let's talk a little bit, because I know you have experience with those moments when entrepreneurs don't decide that it's okay to be, it's safe to be vulnerable to the level that you've taken care of yourself, and now you need to open up to other people in a very specific way. When people turn away from that and they say, no, I know how to manage this thing, I'm going to manage my way out of it, what happens there?
I mean, everybody's different, aren't they? Everybody is different with it, and if somebody's just not willing to go there, they're just not willing to go there, And for us, that is tricky because we're leading the horse to water, but we can only keep leading the horse to water. That's all we can do, and we can only keep regulating ourselves. So I can only keep regulating myself. I can only keep my daily practices going. I can only share from where I'm at and being real and saying, well, this is what I do and this works for me, and I attract like-minded people. That's just who I work with, because it's my lived experience and I can be real with them and they can hopefully be real with me. And yeah, it does take time for relationships to form and trust to build and all of these things. And I think through being authentic, that is how it builds. But if someone really doesn't want to go there, then there's got to be just like this level of acceptance around that. What more can we do? I mean, I certainly know from the past of desperately wanting to change people and knowing this would work for you. I know this would work for you because this is a brilliant thing to do and it worked for me, but not necessarily. And I think part of our job is I find a challenge is 100% really now accepting the other person just as they are, without wanting to change them or without needing to project all the good things that I know over the years. That, for example, I'm working with a 20-something-year-old who won't hear anything. Well, I can't tell him anything. But he's so bright and switched on and all of these things. And all I can do is share my experience. And what lands will land, and what doesn't, it's okay. Might land in another 20 years. You never know.
Yeah, that's right. And also it might land as he sees those symptoms come up, right? Those symptoms of when we've got a death grip on our experience and we're just trying to drive the boat in the direction it wants to go. What happens is we end up exhausted at the end of the day. We end up with sayings on the walls that say things like, the wine is the only reason I'm here or something. I can't remember all those sayings, but you know what I mean, right? So it's like, if you're looking forward to that glass of wine because you cannot wait to get rid of these people, that's a real indicator that something is going on for you that is about not showing up in an authentic way. Same thing with exhaustion, right? It doesn't have to be wine. It could be chocolate. It could be whatever it is that you are grabbing onto, because that sensation of that grabbing on, that's the key there, right? Doesn't matter what it is. It could be your nightly run that you're doing that
Yeah,
with. Doesn't
yeah.
even have to be unhealthy.
Mm.
But that same thing is true of exhaustion, right? We get done with the end of a day. This is when I see in my clients, they go, oh, I have a new awareness, is when they get done with an end of a day and they say, I am exhausted. I had to sleep 28 hours after that day or whatever, right? And that's a real indicator. And if you take it as your body speaking to you, then you can
Mm.
get back into that regulation you talk so much about there, that you can find your way back to, oh, there's something here that needs my attention. Okay. And it could be small. It could be very small, but what is the grain of sand makes the pearl, right? It's like, it could be that grain of sand that's really, really, really irritating. And then if you turn and become aware of it, then you can turn that into your pearl, right? But if you don't, you just get exhausted again tomorrow.
Yeah, and it just becomes a pattern, and then that just, you can't sustain it, can you? It's not sustainable. We know that. We meet so many people through our work and probably personal lives as well.
Let's talk a little bit about earthing and how what that
Mm.
does for us.
Yeah. It's essential, and I I can't believe that we're not taught these things that are so simple, of getting bare feet in the ground to connect us to the frequency of the earth, or actually the currents. So the planet has a current that runs through it, right? Because the planet has a body, like we have a physical body. The planet has a physical body that has an electromagnetic frequency and current running through it. And that frequency is our natural state and our natural frequency. And by putting our bare feet on the earth, or connecting to nature in certain ways, even by touching trees is another way of becoming really grounded, then we're meeting the earth's frequency, and our nervous system gets the chance to, just come into that equilibrium, that homeostasis that we just search for by external influences, like you were talking about. We search for all of these ways to calm us down, and pills to take, and teas to drink, and all of those things, and I'm sure they all have a place. But the simplicity of earthing and grounding, and you can get grounding mats as well, which is as simple as a copper infused sheet that you can lie on. And there's many other ways of connecting, wearing natural fibers, so cotton, hemp, bamboo, those kinds of things. But yeah, it's a topic I am really passionate about it, and I incorporate it with everything that I do. I get out barefoot on the grass twice a day. I try and wear natural. I only wear woolen socks, and I've got a couple of natural rubber and hemp like shoes or wellies, so we're not disconnected from the earth. And that's what's happened to us. We're disconnected from the earth by concrete, by an inch of rubber under our feet, and all of the external stimuli, all of the electromagnetic frequencies of electric pylons, of all the different levels of radiation that are thrown at us through pollution. That's the frequency that we're dealing at, and why we kind of hit this feeling wired, because we're disconnected.
Yeah. So interesting. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today, and giving us some practical tools. Take your shoes off, go outside, and then it's easier to have awareness, to tap into that realness. And I'd love to hear what you've got going on for our listeners.
Yes, so I also run, with three other coaches, a collective for women, female entrepreneurs, and that information about that is available on my website. And I work one-to-one with clients, creative and spiritual entrepreneurs as well. And that looks different for all of my clients. And yeah, I love the work that I do. And yeah, thank you so much for having me here.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. And of course, we will link that everywhere. So, whatever platform you are on, you should be able to go right there and get Claire's link to her website. I also want to remind everybody that I do have a group program coming up. And so please go to my website and check that out. It's at donnalyn.blog. And in that, we really explore joyous ease and flow. So it's a longer term program. So you have all of the support. And when you find yourself in those moments of frustration and exhaustion and all the things we've talked about today, that you really have a forum, a way to connect to other people who are also working through these tools to find joyous ease and flow in life. See you next time.